Hello everyone, and welcome to our latest video on identifying World War One battlefield relics. Today we're going to start off with looking at primer covers. The picture you can see shows more than 30 primer covers we discovered in a single hoard just outside Fricourt on the Somme battlefields, France. Primer covers vary in size and design, but their purpose is the same: to protect the primers at the bottom of shell cases. The covers we are looking at are for the British 18-pounder shell, and they clip on over the base to prevent objects damaging the primer, which could, in the worst case, cause the shell to explode while it is being handled. All ammunition fired from a gun has a primer at the centre of its base, like this German 9mm rifle cartridge, which is dated 1915. The gun's firing pin strikes the primer, causing the indentation you can see. This sets off the main charge in the cartridge and fires the round from the gun. Here we can see the base of an 18-pounder shell cartridge, dated 1918. The small dot in the middle shows where the gun's firing pin hit the primer as the gun was fired. The next picture shows a primer cover fitted over the base of an 18-pounder cartridge, protecting the primer from being damaged through being hit by another object or by being put down or dropped onto an object that might even set it off. This picture shows a Royal Artilleryman resting on a pile of 18-pounder shells in an ammunition dump near Albert, France. We can clearly see the primer covers and their cloth tapes fixed to the bottom of the shells. This is another picture showing a group of artillerymen leaning on a stack of 18-pounder shells, all with their primer covers attached. The primer covers in this picture all come from the hoard we saw at the beginning of the video. Incidentally, primer covers are sometimes referred to as shell stars for obvious reasons. We can see that although they've been in the ground for more than 100 years, the primer covers often still retain their paint, particularly the red paint, which identifies the arm that had to be pushed up in order to remove the cover. Another detail that is apparent is the stamping on the covers, which is often very clear. Each primer cover is stamped 18-pounder, but they also carry the manufacturer's name, usually as initials, and we can find out who they are. The maker's mark ESS, found on British World War I primer covers such as this, and related brass military kit, stands for Edwin Showell and Sons of Stritchley, Birmingham, England, a prominent brass founder and manufacturer that produced vast amounts of small brass components for the British military during the First World War. A single letter stamped directly underneath the manufacturer's initials, in this case the letter J, typically indicates the specific factory, subcontractor mill, or inspector district responsible for the batch. The letter J here signifies the Jarrow Tyne region, or a specific northern subcontractor group. This cover was also made by ESS, but has the letter G stamped below the initials. The letter G indicates the Scottish Glasgow District Inspection and Manufacturing Pool. This mark denotes components processed through the massive industrial munitions hub of Glasgow and the Clyde shipyards, where a significant percentage of heavy brass shell fittings and primer components were produced under government quotas. This maker's mark, NE Co, stands for the New Explosives Company of Stowmarket, Suffolk, England. This company produced propellants, cordite and explosive components, including filling and supplying cartridge primers and covers for artillery shell cases. This maker's mark, ALCO, stands for the American Locomotive Company, a major American industrial manufacturer that shifted capacity to support the Allied war effort. They produce cartridge cases, such as the 18-pounder, and fuses and components for the British military under wartime subcontracts. The maker code EB/L on British military items indicates a combination of Ely Brothers Limited of Edmonton, London, a major British ammunition and component manufacturer active throughout World War One, and an inspector, contractor, or specific site lot designation denoted by the slash or secondary letter suffix L, often referencing a location or subsidiary code like London. This stylised letter B monogram, stamped on British World War One artillery primers and associated components, stands for the Birmingham Metal and Munitions Co., operating out of Adderley Park Rolling Mills, Birmingham, England. They produced vast quantities of small arms ammunition, artillery cartridge components, cases, and primer parts for the British military. This distinct stylised B or interlocking B monogram was used as a factory trademark on ordnance items. The maker mark MP on British ordnance components and related metal items typically stands for Mason and Porter, an engineering and manufacturing firm based in Auckland, New Zealand, which produced munitions and components during the era. The maker stamped on this primer cover is HE & Co., featuring their distinctive interlocked monogram logo stamped just below the text. This was a private contractor responsible for manufacturing or pressing brass and metal components. The single letter M stamped on a primer cover most likely stands for Nobel Explosives Limited, Glasgow. They also use this letter on brass cartridge cases they produced during World War One. Moving on now to fuses. Many shells are found on the Somme even today. This picture shows a pile of shells we found during municipal excavations for a new sewage pipe just outside a French village. We can see from the other side of this massive collection that some shells still retain their fuses. Some have lost them, and others have only parts remaining as the inferior metals corroded away. This, of course, only goes to make them more dangerous, and shells found such as these should never be touched. Here we can see another pile of shells we found, this time on the corner of Wedge Wood near Mouquet Farm. The comparison between the large and small shells is frightening. Closer inspection reveals that along with the many shells in this small section, there are at least a dozen Stokes mortars. This picture, taken close by, shows the range of ordnance that can still be found. Sometimes we found fuses still attached to sections of shells, particularly such as this British 60-pound or 5-inch shell, which separated at a weak point when it exploded, causing the fuse and front section to be blown off, still joined together. Here's another example of a British fuse, still joined to a shell fragment after it exploded. This is another British 60-pound shell fragment with a fuse attached. We've cleaned up this item and given it a coat of varnish so it can be displayed. As can be seen, this is a number 83 Mark II fuse. This picture shows more than 50 shell fuses we have, still yet to be cleaned and identified. Most of the fuse types are British, with a smattering of German examples. It's often a difficult choice to decide how far to go with cleaning fuses, but it makes it difficult to identify the type of fuse unless the stamping on them can be read. This is a before picture, showing a group of British and German fuses before cleaning and being identified. They are not easy to handle or display as rust and dirt continues to fall off them. This after picture shows the same fuses after sympathetic cleaning. It seems obvious to us that this is an improvement. We've not cleaned the brass too much so that it's shining bright yellow, but have stopped before that, allowing us to read the marks but still keeping some of the age patina. Also, we've treated the steel parts, so the rust has been stopped and most of it turned into metal again. After cleaning, we can now see that this fuse is a British number 100 fuse. Next is a British number 101 fuse, this one being a Mark II. This next British fuse is clearly marked as a number 102 Mark I fuse. What makes this fuse particularly interesting is that the number 102 fuse was an upgrade or development of the number 100 fuse. And we can see that this number 102 fuse was originally a number 100 and the number has been stamped over with crosses. There was no desire to waste metal at that part of the war. Let's have a look at a few German fuses now. This is a 76mm Minenwerfer or rifled light mortar fuse, and it's dated 1915. I've treated the steel parts of this fuse so it no longer rusts. This is a German WZ 92 K15 SP16M, which is a rather convoluted way of saying it's a brass dual action time and percussion artillery fuse manufactured in 1916 at the Spandau Arsenal. It stands for Doppelzunder 92, featuring a combined time and impact design used widely on shrapnel and high explosive shells. Both of these German shell fuses are stamped HZ14O. The HZ stands for Haubitzer-Zunder or howitzer fuse, meaning it was engineered primarily for use in howitzer, high explosive or gas projectiles rather than flat trajectory field guns. 14O indicates the model year 1914 and the immediate action impact feature, ohne Verzögerung or without delay, meaning it detonated instantly upon hitting a target without a timed delay. These are examples of the German KZ14 fuse, KZ standing for Kanonen Zunder 14, gun fuse 1914 pattern. It was a non-delay percussion fuse used primarily for high explosive and gas shells. These fuses are constructed of a zinc alloy body with a steel tip. As we can see, the zinc corrodes quite badly in the ground. The steel tip, although rusty, can be cleaned up quite well. Although in quite bad shape, this is a more unusual fuse. This is the German BD-Z10 fuse, BD standing for Bodenzunder or bottom fuse. This device was screwed on the bottom of heavy explosive shells, not the top, whose nose cone was solid and massive in order to improve the penetrating properties of the projectile. The markings can still be read on the fuse. 10 indicated it was model 1910. This is part of my collection. I have more fuses yet to be cleaned up. I've made up examples of the British 18-pounder shrapnel shell, as can be seen at the back. I think these give people a better idea of what the shells look like, and also they make an impressive display. Please subscribe and like our videos if you've enjoyed watching. Thanks, and see you next time.